Alright everyone, back into things today. Apologies about no video yesterday. No real drama there, I was just feeling a little bit under the weather, but a bit better today. Whenever I'm not going to be doing a video Monday to Friday, I'll just stick a wee message in that community tab so that you know what's going on. Because it will happen from time to time. But anyway, we're back today and we have things to discuss. Just a wee reminder, not that you'll need it, that we have to wait until Sunday before we see Celtic in action this week. And it's not even one of those early Sunday kickoffs, although that's probably a good thing. 3 p.m. we'll kick off at Dens Park. Actually, the second of two matches live on Sky Sports. St Mirren versus Rangers is the first match, then Dundee versus Celtic. So already very excited just to sit down for me on Sunday night and watch those matches back to back. I think it could be a pretty big afternoon. We've got plenty of time to build ahead to that game though. At least 2 more videos after this one. Today we've got a combination of things. We've got a few things from Monday's video that I didn't quite have time to pack into that very busy video, and also a few things that have happened since then. 4 stories, I believe, maybe more. If you count this as a story, I just want to start with an updated look at Celtic's competitive penalty shootout record, and these are the last 10 penalty shootouts that we took part in. As you can see, 5 wins and 5 losses, although it is worth pointing out that we have now won 5 of our last 7 shootouts. Obvious one that kind of stands out there probably above the rest would be Spartak Moscow, I guess, as being the most memorable. What a night that was. It's actually funny when you look at those, certainly the more recent ones that I can remember, you kind of think of a figure with them, and I would say certainly at the weekend Joe Hart will be the person who's synonymous with that penalty shootout, and Christopher Ayer for the winning penalty against Hearts in the 2020 Cup final, Tom Rogic probably for that loss against Rangers, Artur Boric again a goalkeeper for the Dundee United one. Spartak Moscow slightly different. I mean, Artur Boric obviously, but Tommy Burns for that spectacular celebration after that one. And I can't speak for any of the last 4 because I'm far too young, but I'm sure a lot of you will have memories from them. Certainly the victory over Partick Thistle, because the 3 prior to that were all defeats. But yeah, that's Celtic's last 10 penalty shootouts. Thankfully, we're only involved in these every 4 years or so we can look forward to the next one being in the 2028 UEFA Champions League final. We'd probably settle for that right now, or next month against Rangers. I've kind of made my thoughts pretty clear on that. Just on that Scottish Cup final that we've got coming up against Rangers, a little bit of discussion about when exactly that will kick off on May the 25th. As you will know, the Scottish Cup traditionally kicks off at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, regardless of who the teams involved are. It's the same with the League Cup. Just one of these things. However, it was different last year. Our final against Inverness Caledonian Thistle actually kicked off at 5:30. I believe this was as a result of Manchester United versus Manchester City being the FA Cup final and that kicking off at 3 p.m. I think it was the BBC in particular who had rights to show both matches, who didn't want them to clash. They made a request to the SFA and the game was moved back to 5:30. A wee side note in that I actually kind of, when I was thinking about this, I had to double check that the game actually did kick off at 5:30. It's not one of the first things that come to my mind regarding that cup final against Inverness last year. The first thing would be the heat at Hampden that day. It was absolutely scorching, and looking back, I kind of can't believe it was that warm. It must have been at 6:30. It was still really, really hot. Hell of a day. But yeah, that game kicked off at 5:30, and there's been, it's fair to say, a little bit of speculation online about the potential for the same happening this year, or certainly a change in kick-off time. It's the Manchester Derby again down south. Again, the FA have announced that will kick off at 3 p.m. So maybe a little bit of chat amongst supporters about Celtic versus Rangers moving. It's never going to kick off at 5:30 due to the volatile nature of the fixture. Could it start at 12:30? Well, it seems not, because there's been a report from the Daily Mail's Stephen McGowan saying that the Scottish Cup final is set to start at 3 p.m, with the SFA not fancying a repeat of the furore of last year. Now, I'm guessing this will be confirmed in the coming days. The match will be shown live on Premier Sports and the BBC, and it's going to be an absolute cracker. Now, talking about cup finals, Celtic B are through to one. It's the Glasgow Cup final. They got there last night by beating Partick Thistle 6-3. Now, 9 goals, 6 of them, I believe, were scored inside the first 22 minutes, which is pretty remarkable. Our 6 goals were shared. 3 players each scored a double. They were Bruno Davidson, Lewis Dobby and Ben Quinn. The team are now set to face either Rangers or Queen's Park in the final, and they have their final Lowland League match of the season this Saturday away to Trinent. So yeah, it's all happening for Stephen McManus's side. And by the way, it is just Stephen McManus's side now. There's no more Darren O'Day being co-manager of the B team, because you may have seen this, may have missed it. There's a lot happening at the weekend. Darren O'Day has actually picked up a new role at Celtic, and it's actually a newly created role. It's called the, ready for this, Professional Player Pathway Manager, and the club says it comes with the aim of developing the progression of players at the club. In a statement they put out, they say that O'Day will report to the head of Celtic's youth academy, who is Chris McCart, and will work with Brendan Rodgers, the first team manager, and Stevie Hamill, who is head of academy coaching, as well as the club's B team and academy coaches. The role will also manage loan opportunities which support the player pathway and development opportunities. So quite simply, it seems like Celtic want to have more players coming through the academy to play for the first team. I mean, there's obvious examples in our first team, like Callum McGregor and, goal scorer from the weekend, James Forrest, and, you can look at players like Stephen Welsh and Anthony Ralston and even someone like Daniel Kelly this season. But it's certainly been a while since we've had a player come right through and be a first team star, and it's something that I think Celtic should ideally be having happen every season. Ideally, I think there should be a player coming through and at least making some sort of impact in the first team. So they're clearly keen to try and address that issue, and they've literally created a whole new role that will be geared towards making that become a reality, and Darren O'Day's been put into that. So I guess the worry with these things is always, have they looked at the right candidate, or have they just gone for someone who's under their nose? Maybe I'm an incredibly naive and trusting person. I just like to think that they have seen that Darren O'Day will be right for this role, and hopefully it pays off. Having said that, and I was on the Celtic website earlier, and they've actually got quite a good page. I'll maybe put it in the description, just listing all of the coaches that are anything to do with development, all the way from like Chris McCart at the top to like Stephen McManus, all the way down to I guess people who would coach like the junior teams. And yeah, without having looked into this for sure, there's a lot of familiar surnames in there. I mean, there's a Chalmers and there's a McStay, and there was another one as well, a McGrory it was as well, and I just find that quite interesting. Nothing against these people at all. I'm sure they all do really good jobs at the club, but it's just it's interesting how we kind of have this need to keep going down the Celtic route, and that kind of leads me on to the next thing as well, although I think this is generally will be a positive move. There's clearly a bit of a reshuffle going on in the youth ranks with all the day stuff, and also we're currently looking for an under-18s boss. Stuart McLaren was in that role up until around about 3 months ago. He'd been at the club for nearly 2 years. Fair bit of success, it's fair to say. He moved on 3 months ago, and the club are now looking for a replacement. A couple of familiar names have been floated in the media over the past 24 hours or so. Charlie Mulgrew is one. He retired at the end of last season and is very clearly and obviously gearing up for a career in management. He wants to be a coach, he wants to be a manager. Johnny Hayes is the other name. He is still playing technically, although he's not featuring at all really for Aberdeen at the moment. He has been coaching their under-16s this season, I believe. So Mulgrew and Hayes are the two names that have been mentioned about potentially coming in and being Celtic's new under-18s manager. I think Mulgrew in particular is a pretty interesting coach. It's hard to know about these people until they actually go out and do something notable. I mean, I remember Xabi Alonso, who's now probably one of the most highly rated and sought after managers in world football, being kind of mentioned as a potential Celtic manager, not by anyone genuinely saying there was like a link there, but just the people saying, why don't we go after this guy Xabi Alonso? I think he was with Real Sociedad's youth teams at that stage. So that's kind of evidence of how coaches start and work their way up. And I'm not in any way saying Mulgrew is going to be a world-class manager. But equally, I think he's someone to keep an eye on. I think he certainly talks a very good game, clearly has a good idea of how he feels football should be played. And it seems to be a way that's kind of linked into how Celtic would like to play, ideally. So basically what I'm saying is I think this might be a good fit for both parties. It might be a good start to Mulgrew's coaching career to have him come in and be a manager, but of the under-18s team, possibly work his way up and probably leave at some stage to go to another club if he does pretty well. And I think for him equally it might be a good one. Interesting to hear Johnny Hayes' name mentioned as well. He wasn't someone I was really aware of as being a coach, but again, had a pretty good career. Lots of experience there and a very likeable person. So it's going to be interesting to see, what route the club go down, if it's either of those guys or perhaps someone else. But yeah, changes I think are happening with the youth team. And you don't always get to hear about them directly from the club. Even stuff like the Darren O'Day stuff sometimes goes under the radar. But yeah, I think we need to have more players coming through and featuring for us, because it's not really working at the moment. There doesn't seem to be a clear pathway there. Is it that the players just aren't good enough? Are we not trusting enough of these young players? Is there too much on the line to blood in youngsters? Perhaps a bit of both. It could be its own video one day. Yeah, moving on, and we finished with some pretty shocking news. I couldn't believe that when this came up. Apparently UEFA have announced their pretty hefty team of officials for the Euros this summer, and they've not included any Scottish officials at all. I'm scratching my head at this. I'm just trying to think out, why this would be the case, and when they've gone for officials, 90 of them in total for this tournament, from the likes of Romania and Sweden and Switzerland and Slovenia and Turkey and Poland and even Argentina. They've even gone to another continent. Why wouldn't they go for any of our officials? Just what is so wrong about Scottish referees? Well, we'll just have to keep wondering on that one. One thing we do know is that John Beaton will be in charge of this Sunday's match at Dens Park against Dundee. He will be assisted by David Room, Dougie Potter. The fourth official is Peter Stewart, VAR Andrew Dallas, and assistant VAR Graham Leslie. Really fun stuff there. I'm sure that will go swimmingly. Right, that's us for today. Covered a fair bit of ground there, a few things to get our teeth into, so thanks for tuning in once again. I'll be back tomorrow when I'll hopefully be fully over this daft cold and we can really look forward to the weekend.